What if the best Transformers toys ever made were the ones that weren't even supposed to exist? Today, we're breaking down all 5 original G1 Dinobots: Grimlock, Slag, Sludge, Snarl, and Swoop, and exactly what makes them some of the most important, most powerful, most collectible Transformers to ever come out of the 1985 toy line. We're talking chrome, die-cast metal, insane dinosaur modes, and characters that made kids lose their minds on Saturday mornings. We're also getting into the engineering story behind these toys, because where the Dinobots actually came from is way more interesting than most people know. Stick around to the end because we're going to cover exactly what to look for if you're hunting these down today and which one is the hardest to find complete.
Dynamite! Back to the 80s we go!
Here's something a lot of people don't know. The Dinobots didn't start as Transformers. Before Hasbro, before the cartoon, before any of it, these molds were designed in 1983 by a Japanese toy company called Takara as part of a line called Diaclone, specifically the Dinosaur Robo subseries. And in that original context, they were not Autobots fighting Decepticons. They were military mecha built by the Diaclone Corps to fight an army of actual dinosaurs that had been summoned through a time rift, which honestly is even crazier than the Transformers story. The Diaclone versions had a few key differences from what we got in the US. They came with tiny die-cast pilot figures, little drivers called Dionauts with magnetic feet, who could actually sit inside a hidden cockpit on Grimlock's back. That cockpit is still on your G1 Grimlock toy, by the way. There's a small hatch that rotates open on the dinosaur's back. Most kids never even knew it was there. The designer responsible for all 5 molds was a man named Kojin Ono, who filed US patents for each figure in 1984 under titles like Reconfigurable Dinosaurian Toy. That's the actual patent name, Reconfigurable Dinosaurian Toy. Hasbro licensed these molds from Takara, added the Transformers lore, and released them in 1985 as Wave 2. But here's one of the most interesting engineering details about the transition from Diaclone to Transformers. In the original Diaclone versions, the swords, Slag's horns, and Swoop's beak were all made of hard chromed plastic, and they looked incredible. But when Hasbro brought these toys to the US, child safety regulations required those parts to be made from soft rubber instead. And here's the problem. Chrome plating doesn't bond to soft plastic. So every sword, every horn, Swoop's beak, and missiles, all of it came out of bare red rubber instead of chrome. The commercials and the box are still showed the chrome versions because they were shot using the original Diaclone prototypes. So what you saw in the ad, what you pulled out of the box, were 2 different things. That gap between the ad and the toy is something a lot of collectors remember. And it's a big part of why the Diaclone versions are so prized today. In the 1984 cartoon, Wheeljack and Ratchet built the first 3 Dinobots, Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge, in the episode SOS Dinobots. The idea was to create something powerful enough to counter Decepticon brute force. It worked, a little too well. They were too aggressive, too unpredictable. Optimus Prime nearly had them deactivated before they could do any real damage. They didn't think like Autobots. They acted on instinct, argued with authority, and caused more chaos inside the base than outside of it. Then in the follow-up episode, War of the Dinobots, Snarl and Swoop were built. And here's the twist most people forget. They weren't built to fight Decepticons. They were built to bring the original 3 Dinobots back in line after Megatron had manipulated Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge into fighting the Autobots. So Snarl and Swoop's first job was to rescue Optimus Prime from their own teammates. That dynamic is everything. The Dinobots weren't just rogue heroes. They were a liability as much as an asset, and the show leaned into that constantly. They viewed most Autobots as weak. They barely followed orders, but if you messed with one of them, you were dealing with all five. That tight internal loyalty is what made them compelling. They weren't polished heroes, they were controlled chaos. And that personality came through in every single toy. The King. Let's start with the King, Grimlock, because there's no other way to start this.
To help them in the never-ending battle against the evil Decepticons, the Autobots create a new breed of robots, Dinobots. From Hasbro.
Grimlock transforms into a T-Rex, and the toy is exactly as ridiculous and incredible as that sounds. Die-cast metal waist, chrome chest plates, a T-Rex head that opens and closes with actual teeth. When you held this thing as a kid, you felt the weight of it immediately. This was not a lightweight figure. In robot mode, he looked like a walking tank. In dinosaur mode, he looked like he could end Optimus Prime without breaking a sweat. The engineering on Grimlock is deceptively clever. The entire rear half of the dinosaur folds down to become his legs. The flanks open up and the head drops to reveal the robot torso. Fists extend from the forelimbs. For 1985 toy engineering, the complexity of that transformation was genuinely impressive. And hiding inside the whole thing, that secret Diaclone cockpit on his back. A rotating pilot seat that most American kids never knew about because it was never mentioned in the US instructions. Personality-wise, the guy spoke in broken third person. Me, Grimlock, no, bozo. He was blunt, he was aggressive, and he was secretly smarter than anyone gave him credit for. For collectors, the chrome chest wears and flakes fast. The red rubber sword is almost always missing. Complete examples with clean chrome, tight jaw, and all accessories are where real value sits. Grimlock is always the first piece people want. He is the centerpiece. Next up is the Triceratops. In the original 1985 G1 line, this was Slag. Later reissues changed the name for obvious reasons, but the toy was mean from day one. Chrome horns, die-cast chest, a hinged shoulder-mounted missile launcher, and a fire-breathing gimmick in dinosaur mode. In robot mode, he had this squared-off, armored silhouette that just looked aggressive. No flash, no elegance, just force. One engineering detail worth knowing: Slag was the only Dinobot whose feet were a single conjoined base in dinosaur mode. A design choice that carried over from Diaclone. It's a small thing, but it gives his dino mode a slightly different stance than the others. More planted, more aggressive looking. For collectors, chrome flaking on the horns is extremely common. The missile launcher accessory disappears constantly. Slag doesn't get the spotlight that Grimlock does, so people overlook him. Right up until they can't find a clean one. Sludge does not get enough credit, and that's been true since 1985. He transforms into a brontosaurus. Technically an apatosaurus, but Hasbro called him brontosaurus, kids called him brontosaurus, and the Diaclone catalog called him brontosaurus. So let's go with that. Long chrome neck, die-cast metal robot chest painted red, a huge footprint that made the whole group look massive when you line them up. The transformation is pure Diaclone logic. The entire rear half of the dinosaur becomes the robot's legs, the arms extend from the forelimbs, and the head and upper back open up to reveal the robot underneath. And on Sludge's robot chest, there's a vestigial driver cockpit with a translucent door, another leftover from the Diaclone days that Hasbro kept in the mold. Interestingly, Sludge is considered the most structurally intact of all 5 Dinobots. He's less prone to breakage than Swoop or Grimlock, and his mold was never reused after the original G1 run. For collectors, the chrome neck loosens and scuffs with age, and storing him is its own challenge given the size. Complete Sludge with strong joints and clean chrome is harder to find than people expect. If there's one Dinobot that gets slept on, it's Snarl. Stegosaurus mode with gold chrome backplates. That is the detail right there. Gold chrome catches light in a way that most 80s toys never could. And on Snarl's backplates, it is genuinely one of the most visually striking G1 figures in the entire lineup. The gold chrome is actually set behind smoky, translucent gray plastic, so it glows through the plastic in a way that feels almost backlit. You're not supposed to be able to make a 1985 toy look that good. But gold chrome is also the most fragile kind of chrome. It scratches, it dulls, it shows every bit of wear immediately. And Snarl's sword, which he actually wielded in the cartoon, making him one of the only Dinobots to use a melee weapon in robot mode on screen, goes missing constantly. Snarl didn't have as much cartoon screen time as Grimlock, but as a toy, he stands up with any of them. Clean gold chrome on a Snarl today is rare. If you find one, you'll know it immediately. Swoop is the wild card of the set. He's smaller than the others, a pteranodon.
What's this? A Tyranno? Who's this?
The only flying Dinobot, chrome wings, a die-cast metal chest, and a slim build that feels completely different from the 4 tanks he stands next to. The engineering on Swoop is genuinely unique. His large jet engine-like structures swing down to become his lower legs. His torso splits open, with the pteranodon beak becoming the center of the robot chest. He's also the only Dinobot who can mount his missile launchers in dinosaur mode, under the wings like a fighter jet. And he's the only one with no non-firing pistol, just the launchers and the sword. But Swoop is also the most fragile of the 5 by a wide margin. The hinge on the upper beak is thin, and the clear plastic is brittle. Once that beak goes, it almost always takes the lower beak with it. Pulling out his arms for robot mode puts stress on the shoulder joints, and a lot of vintage samples have arms that have been ripped clean off of that joint. And he was also simply harder to find at retail. In the original 1985 run, Swoop wasn't even available in the UK. Complete Swoop with strong chrome and all intact parts commands real attention from collectors. If you're building the full set, budget extra time and money for this one. Let's step back, because it's worth asking, why did these 5 toys hit differently from everything else in the entire Transformers line? Most Autobots were clean, tactical, strategic. Optimus Prime was noble, Jazz was cool, Bumblebee was the kid-friendly one. The Dinobots were none of those things. They didn't politely defeat Decepticons. They smashed them. They argued with Optimus Prime. They viewed most Autobots as weak. They were the chaos agents of the team, pushed to the fringes of Autobot society, and because of that, fiercely loyal to each other. And from a pure toy design standpoint, they nailed the 2 biggest obsessions of every 8-year-old in 1985, dinosaurs and robots. Nobody needed a story arc to explain why a chrome T-Rex that transformed into a robot was cool. You saw Grimlock on the shelf and you understood everything instantly. That's not an accident. That's the results of engineering from Takara and marketing from Hasbro working together perfectly. Today, G1 Dinobots remain some of the most sought-after Transformers from the entire 1985 lineup. The market has not gotten cheaper. What drives value? Chrome condition above everything else, joint tightness, complete accessories, sticker quality, die-cast wear, and whether or not the box is present. Loose but complete sets carry strong demand. Boxed examples with clean inserts are a completely different tier. Even with masterpiece versions and modern reissues on the market, the original 1985 G1 molds still carry something those versions never will: actual nostalgia weight. The die cast, the real chrome, the heft of the toy in your hand. These aren't just collectibles, they're a specific Saturday morning in 1985 that doesn't exist anymore. The Dinobots weren't the most disciplined Autobots. They weren't the most strategic. Half the time, Optimus Prime wished they didn't exist. But Grimlock's presence, Slag's aggression, Sludge's size, Snarl's shine, Swoop's rarity, together, 5 molds designed by the engineer in Japan in 1983 became some of the most iconic toys of the entire decade. If you had even one of these as a kid, you remember it. The weight, the chrome catching the light, the way Grimlock's jaw snapped open. If you had all 5, you ruled the neighborhood. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. More videos coming out. It helps the channel more than you can realize, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you.